This week on Government Matters.
I don't think there's any love lost between Silicon Valley and Washington right now, and I think there's going to have to be some serious bridge mending as we move forward.
The world's largest gathering of computer security experts converge on San Francisco. We hit the hot-button issues at RSA.
It's going to take weighing the equities on both the tech and privacy side as well as law enforcement. I sit on the Intelligence Committee. The threats against our nation are real. Lawmakers are trying to find the right balance between privacy and security amid a landmark legal battle between Apple and the FBI.
Overcapacity is really less of a concern than having the right capacity in the right place at the right time.
On Monday, Satellite 2016 opens at National Harbor in Maryland. Is Satcom as a service the future for an Air Force focused on innovation? Government Matters starts right now.
From ABC 7 and News Channel 8, this is Government Matters.
To our viewers around the world on the American Forces Network and here in the nation's capital, thanks for joining us. Government is the engine that runs this city. That's why Government Matters. Every week we'll bring you the top headlines in tech, security, and management. I'm your host, Morris Jones. For the past 25 years, the RSA Conference in San Francisco has taken place, largely unnoticed by the general population. But that's changing. Today, RSA not only launches data security products, it sets internet security philosophy and attracts some of the government's top officials, as Jonathan Bloom reports.
Good afternoon, everyone.
If the U.S. Attorney General got a lukewarm reception, it may be that she was in enemy territory.
Absolutely, I understand the Attorney General's opinions. I think most of us here do not agree with her.
At the world's largest security conference, one issue was in the spotlight.
Apple decided to make products that actually serve their customers.
The FBI versus Apple, security versus privacy.
What the FBI is asking for seems inappropriate, and this debate really belongs in Congress.
The head of the NSA took the stage, begging the industry to work with the government.
We're spending a lot of time right now talking to each other about what we can't do. And in many ways, we're not even talking to each other. We're just talking past each other.
Some say being able to break iPhone security would give governments too much power. The Attorney General argues not being able to gives too much power to Apple.
Do we let one company, no matter how great the company, no matter how beautiful their devices, do we let one company decide this issue for all of us?
Tech companies are now designing even tougher security, using quantum computing to generate true random numbers for unbreakable encryption.
If you have this type of true random number, you can just totally bypass that Achilles heel of security.
It was a pseudo-random number generator that caused a weakness in some firewalls, one the NSA was well aware of, according to Edward Snowden. Now, some security researchers blame that weakness for the hack on the Office of Personnel Management.
It's entirely possible that a U.S. government backdoor was eventually responsible for the compromise of the U.S. government.
In San Francisco, Jonathan Bloom, ABC 7 News.
Let's dig into a few more headlines from the RSA Conference. Joining me via Skype from San Francisco is Greg Otto, technology editor for FedScoop. Greg, let's start with the basics. What's the weather been like out there?
Stereotypical San Francisco weather, Morris. It's been foggy in the morning, burns off in the afternoon, sun shining, about 65, 70 degrees. It's been great.
All right, meantime, back in Washington, this past Wednesday, Defense Secretary Ash Carter announced the first ever bug bounty program run by a federal agency. Tell us more about Hack the Pentagon. When will it start? How will it work? And who's leading the charge?
So Hack the Pentagon is an initiative announced by the Secretary of Defense this week that he is going to have white hat hackers come in and poke around in their systems and find vulnerabilities on their public-facing websites, some unclassified enterprise systems, and see where the vulnerabilities are and report back to DoD for the sheer fact of giving them the intelligence on where their vulnerabilities are so they can patch them before they are infiltrated by nation states or cyber criminals.
Well, it all sounds progressive, but there are limitations. Unlike commercial bug bounty programs, which are open to all comers or organized by third-party vendors like BugCrowd Inc., the Pentagon will require participants to undergo a background check before participating. Now, Greg, the Pentagon wants to bring the best talent into this bug bounty program. I wonder how the nation's top white hat hackers view those restrictions. What are you hearing at RSA?
Well, I don't think that they are really dismayed by the restrictions at all. I think that the DoD was always going to have some form of background check. They weren't just going to let hackers just go willy-nilly through the systems. But the line for the Secretary of Defense comments on this was wrapped around the Moscone West Center. I talked to people afterwards, and they were very excited about this. And I know the Secretary of Defense is very, very excited too. You know, he said during his remarks, this isn't innovation for innovation's sake. He's going to view this as a utility, and he's trying to find innovative ways for the DoD to keep up with the way the technology is moving. And I think this is one way that, you know, he's trying to bridge the gap to get more Silicon Valley innovation and Silicon Valley talent to poke around in DoD systems.
Let's talk more about something you brought up. The Defense Department also announced a new partnership with 12 Silicon Valley CEOs. It's called the Defense Innovation Advisory Board. Bring us up to date.
So this advisory board is going to be a 12-member panel that is going to work with DoD on putting more technology in DoD systems. It is going to work on like iterative product development, putting more mobile, more cloud, more big data into DoD. It is headed up by Alphabet Chairman Eric Schmidt. Alphabet is the parent company of Google. And Eric is going to appoint the rest of the board. During his comments yesterday, Secretary Carter was very excited that Eric Schmidt was aboard, called him vital to this effort. And I know that Eric has gone on record to say he's very excited and wants to put, you know, his full efforts into this. You're going to see some names start to roll out in the coming weeks, but for now, it's only Schmidt's name attached. But, you know, when you have the CEO of one of the most powerful tech companies in the world helping out the most powerful army in the world, you know, that resonates on both coasts.
Now, Greg, while Ash Carter strengthened the Obama administration's ties to Silicon Valley, Attorney General Loretta Lynch tested them. She still wants Apple to follow a court order and hack an iPhone for the FBI. Talk about mixed messages here. How did the world's largest gathering of computer security experts react?
Yeah, this has been the big topic here this week. It's really been buzzing here at RSA, the Apple versus FBI. It's funny, so Loretta Lynch came out and said during her remarks that she didn't understand why Apple should be the one company to determine this case and how this is going to shape out. And that it wasn't really well received, which was interesting because Secretary Carter and Admiral Mike Rogers, head of the NSA, also came out and said, you know, they're for encryption, but, you know, would like to see it move beyond just this one case. And it was well received. I mean, Secretary Carter got applause during his remarks, and they weren't all that different from what Loretta Lynch said. So I don't think there's any love lost between Silicon Valley and Washington right now, and I think there's going to have to be some serious bridge mending as we move forward.
Keep us posted on all of this. Greg Otto, technology editor for FedScoop, with us from San Francisco. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
As Apple and the FBI try to move forward, they could benefit from better communication. Generally speaking, that's the idea behind a new bipartisan bill just introduced on Capitol Hill. Co-sponsor Senator Mark Warner joins me straight ahead on Government Matters. In Management Matters, the National Commission on Security and Technology challenges. Congress is trying to answer the call for more communication amid a landmark legal battle between Apple and the FBI. This week, a bipartisan group of lawmakers led by Senator Mark Warner and Representative Michael McCall introduced a bill to create a 16-member commission to do just that. For more, let's turn to Senator Mark Warner. He joins us from our bureau on Capitol Hill. Senator, tell us more about this commission. Who will participate and what are they trying to achieve?
Well, Morris, we started work on this long before the recent case between Apple and the FBI that's playing out in California. I might quickly also add that there's a case in New York that the magistrate actually came out with almost the opposite ruling. So this is an area that will be litigated. So we decided, let's put the experts in the room. Right now, when we see some of the statements made by Apple and frankly some of the statements made by law enforcement, I believe folks are talking past each other. So we said, let's get Let's get the tech industry, let's get privacy advocates, let's get law enforcement, both federal and local, let's get the intel community, let's get cryptologists, let's get the kind of folks in a room that candidly should have been put in a room 3 years ago, and if there had been those kind of actions, we probably wouldn't be having this kind of litigation going on right now. I personally believe, as somebody who believes it's critically important that we protect Americans, both in terms of against criminals and terrorists, but also our privacy, that there are ways to sort through this, and that if we end up with a static one-time solution, the end result may be that Americans are actually not safer, and that criminals, terrorists, and frankly others will simply use foreign-based hardware and software.
Now, the Commission's report will also include recommendations for policy, practice, and possibly legislation. It could change the way law enforcement obtains warrants or redefine digital evidence. Do your colleagues in Congress have the technical expertise to keep pace here?
Well, Morris, that's exactly the problem. And as somebody who spent 20 years in the telecom industry, the whole notion of the network that existed in the 90s versus the internet today with the existence of the cloud is fundamentally different. The old network used to be top-down. The networks that we're dealing with now are more distributed. And I feel like I'm fairly up on the technology, but I wouldn't trust me alone to try to figure this out. That's why we need to get a common set of facts. At the end of the day, I don't think this should be litigated out in the courts, particularly when the law that's being applied in the California case is a law that goes back to 1789, the so-called All Writs Act. I think Congress is going to act, but the good news about this is if we can get the common set of facts, this is not an issue that's devolved into Democrats versus Republicans. In the Senate, for example, we have 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. We're picking up other supporters in both parties. We've had support from law enforcement, from tech, from the privacy community. You know, this is one of those areas, and I know many of the viewers are saying, well, a commission normally sounds like a punt. The model we've tried to say is not to create a commission that would create a set of recommendations that wouldn't be acted upon, but actually a commission modeled after the 9/11 Commission. I think it's of that much significance, digital security, because these issues are just going to get more complicated, and come together with that common set of recommendations and common set of facts, and then it'll be incumbent upon us in Congress to take those and pass legislation.
We know it's a thorny issue. The balance between privacy and national security, the fight between Apple and the FBI has been brewing for quite a while. You may have already answered it, but let's pin you down a little bit more. Do you support one side or the other?
I believe that we need a solution set. I think it's going to take weighing the equities on both the tech and privacy side as well as law enforcement. I sit on the Intelligence Committee. The threats against our nation are real. But I also believe that encryption is here to stay. Matter of fact, everyone on the intel side, even Director Comey, has said encryption makes Americans safer. It protects our personal information, our financial information, intellectual capital, and candidly, it's used to protect critical infrastructure all over our country. So encryption is not you're for or against encryption. Encryption is here to stay. How do we then sort through a way that is legal, that respects people's privacy, but also doesn't create, in effect, a back door which could fall into the hands of the bad guys that would make not only the case that is being talked about vis-a-vis certain criminals, but candidly make a lot of our other systems less secure. I actually believe there are technology-based solutions that we could sort through on this, but it's going to require a less adversarial approach from these entities and more collaboration. I've privately had individuals on both sides say, hey, force us into the room. We can work this out. And it's been disappointing to me that we've not had this kind of collaboration, at a major level over the last couple of years. Although there has been some, if you follow the particular case, there has been evidence that Apple and law enforcement have worked together collaboratively on a whole host of issues prior to this litigation.
We wish you luck on Capitol Hill. We'll keep an eye on it as well. Senator Mark Warner, good to have you with us. Thanks.
Thank you, Morris.
Speaking of collaboration, one company in the commercial satellite industry wants to work with the federal government to create a new model for military communications. We profile satellite as a service. Straight ahead on Government Matters. In tech matters, Satcom as a service. Last year, General John Hyden, head of Air Force Space Command, painted an unflattering picture of space systems. He said they lack resiliency and survivability and urged a retooling of the entire space architecture. That retooling is taking shape. Joining me with the latest is Rebecca Cowen-Hirsch, Senior Vice President of Government Strategy and Policy at Inmarsat. Rebecca, let's start there. The private sector is trying to capitalize on those changes to space architecture through approaches like Satcom as a service. Explain that term for us.
Well, the satellite communication community for the commercial operators has been supporting the government now for a generation. And as the greater dependence on satellite communication and in these integrated architectures really causes for a new opportunity to look at how to integrate commercial satellite communication with military satellite communication. So we've proposed a concept called Satcom as a service that embeds not only the satellite communication capabilities, the terminals, the service, the intricacies of providing that capability anytime, any place in the world, and provide it as a service available for military use.
Before joining Inmarsat, you spent a lot of time in government, including DISA. You also established the Defense Spectrum Office. That's quite a background. Give us a history lesson on this push to move wideband global Satcom operations to the private sector. Why now?
It's really been a partnership over time. The government used to be out in front in terms of defining and developing all satellite communications, and the commercial industry has matured and provided equally capable and more diverse and globally available satellite communications that the military are consuming. With the government budgets on the decline, the opportunity to embed and integrate commercial communications more intentionally, therefore allowing the government to invest its precious resources in more exquisite capabilities, is an integration opportunity that makes taxpayer sense, but also military operational effective sense.
Now, Rebecca, in July of 2015, the Government Accountability Office published a report on satellite procurement. It recommended assessing whether centralization of commercial Satcom procurement could be beneficial. Where do you fall on this issue?
There's opportunities to improve the way the government acquires Satcom, but importantly, to take advantage of the services that are readily available, to do it in an affordable manner that's going to provide the use and the access to capacity when and where needed, and to leverage those taxpayer resources in a meaningful way to ensure that it's efficient, affordable, and effective. At the end of the day, it's really about providing military operational capability through a commercial service.
I'm wondering, is there overcapacity in the market?
Overcapacity is really less of a concern than having the right capacity in the right place at the right time that's appropriate for military use. With so much focus on mobility, and with the troops operating here in the U.S. and deploying at a moment's notice anytime, any place, anywhere, being able to have that capability available to you when you need it on demand is important, and having capacity at that location is appropriate.
Your company, Inmarsat, is working with Boeing to launch a new satellite in the second half of 2016. Bring us up to date on that project. Are you on track, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Our Global Express program, which we have done in partnership with Boeing, our baseline constellation finished its global deployment in December of 2015. And we will be adding another satellite to that constellation for additional capacity and additional coverage in the latter part of this year. We're on track, manufacturing is progressing well, and we're just looking to determine a launch date when that makes sense for us to do so.
Good deal. We'll be talking about these and other issues at Satellite 2016. It runs from March 7th to the 10th at the Gaylord National Convention Center in National Harbor, Maryland. Rebecca Cowen-Hirsch with Inmarsat. Thanks again, Rebecca.
Thank you.
When I was in high school, the term STEM applied to flowering plants. Stems support leaves and transmit water. Today, STEM also stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. It's an education priority for government and industry alike. Diane Cho has this special report.
So basically what this does is that it tells you how much genetic material you have in your samples.
Kritika Singh is a senior at the Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology.
So here we have the incubators that we use to grow the cells and to keep them at a sterile temperature.
Her final year secondary education includes a school project, and for it, she chose to work at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at NIH.
I get to do parasite culture there. Since I'm over 18, I'm allowed to work with human blood, which is really exciting, and I'm doing vaccine studies.
She also launched Malaria Free World nearly 2 years ago, which is an effort she says that's designed to raise awareness and one day eradicate the disease.
After this internship that I had, I realized that a lot of my friends thought of malaria as just a disease that we shouldn't care about, or it doesn't exist in the United States, so we shouldn't care. And I realized that there's this huge gap in understanding of our generation right now, especially with respect to infectious diseases.
Singh hopes her work will inspire young girls to get involved in science.
I just talked to them about how science can be really fun and it's glamorous to be a scientist. It's also like some young girls are very scared of being called a nerd or a geek, especially in middle school, and that's why they kind of try to pretend like they're dumber than they actually are. But I always tell them that geek is the new chic.
She's one of several speakers at this year's K-12 STEM Symposium. STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math.
I've been working in the STEM field since about 2004 when I ran the DoD summer study on critical workforce issues in the defense industrial base. A big part of what we found in that study was we were not getting enough U.S. citizens excited and attracted into STEM careers, and that was creating a challenge for the national security industry. That's now expanded into a much larger concern.
Ed Swallow helped organize the STEM Symposium, and his company sponsored the event. He hopes it will engage young minds through a hands-on learning experience.
What we found is the earlier you can get kids excited and attracted to STEM, the better. And you really want to attract them in that critical K-5 grade area, and you don't do that through lectures, and you don't do that through speeches.
He says the event will have everything from 3D printers to micro drones and connected cars.
So if you can take it that next step and help the student understand that, yeah, math and science, until you get it, it's hard, and then when you get it, it's fun. And it's just getting over that little extra leap that you have to take to really take the time to understand it, and then it becomes a whole lot of fun. That's what we're trying to get people to go do, to have that excitement and attraction to it, so they'll work on it just that little bit harder.
The symposium is on March 12th, and for more information, just head to STEMsymposium.com. For Government Matters, I'm Diane Cho.
And that's the latest from Washington. Thanks for being with us. I'm Morris Jones. We know your week is filled with other matters. Save this half hour for us.